Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has been captured and flown out of the country after the US carried out a large-scale strike over the weekend. President Trump says the US will run Venezuela until a judicious transition can happen. He also says the US will seize Venezuela's massive oil reserves. Maduro will face federal charges related to drug trafficking and working with gangs designated as terrorist organizations. Oil prices are now rising, reversing the initial losses after the US captured Venezuelan President Maduro and said it was taking control of the Latin American country. OPEC has also decided to leave oil production unchanged amidst heightened political tensions between Saudi Arabia and the UAE over a conflict in the Yemen. Gold and silver prices have also jumped as haven demand has been boosted after the turn of events on the weekend. US futures remain steady after a mixed close on Friday. Asian markets are trading higher, tracking developments from the West. The GIFT Nifty is also suggesting a gap up start for our own markets. A whole host of banks and NBFCs reported business updates for the third quarter. Bajaj Finance's AUM growth is in line with the guidance range from the management of 22 to 23%. M&M Financial reports disbursement growth of 7%. Bank of Baroda and Bandhan Bank also report strong numbers. From the consumer pack, Marico reports good provisional numbers, while for Avenue Supermarts, the standalone revenue growth was 13%. There is a lot to track this morning. You're watching Power Breakfast right here on CNBC TV 18 in the Mumbai News Center. I am Hormas Fatakia. Let's first take a look at how the Asian markets have started off this morning. And it's a positive start compared to where we ended off last week. The Taiwanese index is now up 2.5% as we speak. The Hang Seng, though, still trading around the flat line. That has been a bit of an underperformer. The Shanghai Composite still 0.6% higher. The gains also coming in from Nikkei and the Kospi. Both of them, the Japanese and the South Korean benchmarks, have begun 2026 on a very positive note. Both of those indices also trading with gains of 2.5% each. Pull up the GIFT Nifty as well. I'll give you an idea of how our own markets are likely to start off. Well, as in line with the initial ticks, still holding on to gains of around 86%, so 86 points. So after making a record high last Friday, the implied open is currently suggesting that the Nifty is likely to open higher today as well. But the big story in focus today, in a surprise move over the weekend, the US attacked Venezuela and captured the long-serving President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. President Donald Trump has promised to put the country under American control for now and will tap into its oil reserves, even as Venezuelan officials vow defiance. Let's hear out his initial comments following the capture.
United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
Now, Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores are charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, and weapons offenses. Now, the Venezuelan leader is scheduled to make his first court appearance in New York City later today. Take a look at this detailed report.
Venezuela's toppled leader, Nicolas Maduro, was in a New York detention center on Sunday, awaiting drug charges. That's after President Donald Trump ordered an audacious raid to capture him, saying the U.S. would take control of the oil-producing nation. The image of the 63-year-old Maduro blindfolded and handcuffed en route to the U.S. has stunned Venezuelans. It was Washington's most controversial intervention in Latin America since the invasion of Panama 37 years ago. Maduro is due to appear in a Manhattan court on Monday.
Good night. Happy New Year.
While many Western nations oppose Maduro and say he stole the 2024 election, there were many calls for the U.S. to respect international law and resolve the crisis diplomatically. There were also questions over the legality of seizing a foreign head of state. Democrats say they were misled at recent Congress briefings and demanded a plan for what is to follow. At home, Maduro allies were still in charge and have denounced what they call kidnapping as part of an imperialist oil grab. The UN Security Council plans to meet on Monday to discuss the U.S. move, which Secretary General Antonio Guterres described as a dangerous precedent. Russia and China, both major backers of Venezuela, criticized the U.S. Pope Leo said he was following events with a soul full of concern and called for Venezuela to stay independent and respectful of rights.
In Venezuela.
Well, it won't cost us anything.
Trump said the U.S. would, for now, manage the South American nation, plus its oil reserves. It is unclear just how Trump plans to oversee Venezuela. Trump's focus on foreign affairs fuels Democrats' criticism and also runs the risk of alienating some supporters who have backed his America First agenda and oppose foreign interventions.
Let's also now listen into U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio defending the recent U.S. operation in Venezuela that led to the arrest of the country's longtime leader, Nicolas Maduro, saying that congressional authorization was not required for the same. Listen in.
This was not an invasion. We didn't occupy a country. This was an arrest operation. This was a law enforcement operation. He was arrested on the ground in Venezuela by FBI agents, read his rights, and removed from the country. I encourage everyone, I know it's Sunday, people are busy, but the indictments have now been unsealed. People should read this indictment. They should read this indictment. They should read what this man did for the last 15 years of his life against the United States, him and his wife. He was arrested. Obviously, this was not a friendly territory. So in order to arrest him, we had to ask the Department of War to become involved in this operation. The Department of War went in, they hit anything that was a threat to the agents that were going in to arrest him, and they hit anything that was the threat on the way out.
That was all the developments that have taken place over the weekend in Venezuela. But how will all of this impact our own markets, or will there be any impact? Our research team is here to tell you just that, with the trade setup, stocks that are likely to be in the news, and of course the setup on the F&O side of things as well. First up, Gaurav is here to tell us all the market cues we need to watch out for. Gaurav, good morning.
Good morning. If you look at Nifty, we have already seen Nifty actually breached its 52-week high and all-time high level, and currently it ended at around 26,330. So what's next is that if you look at open interest data, it suggests that there is some support building up in the put side of Nifty. In fact, 26,200 is the level that we should be watching out for. In fact, in case if there is any downside, and at the same time on the upside, 26,500 is something can be act as resistance. Apart from that, if you look at sector-wise performance, all the sector ended in green except for FMCG. Within FMCG also, if you look at ITC, that was down, and that was one of the key reason why FMCG index was down. Apart from that, Nifty Energy, if you look at that index, it was up more than 2%. So let's see if any gist is left in this index. Weekly, if you look at the performance, Nifty Metals and Nifty PSU banks actually led the rally in the last week. So let's also watch out for all the stocks in Nifty Metals and Nifty PSU banks. Remember, results are also coming in. So let's see if it is going to have any grip on the indices. Other than that, if you look at the specific stocks, watch out for IDBI Bank. It was up more than 10%. And remember, on the weekend, we also saw quarterly updates coming up from the bank, which was healthy. Other than that, ITC, Sapphire Foods, both were down almost by 4% in the last trading session. And let's see if there is any action which can be seen in these stocks. TFCI, if you look at this stock, this was down almost by 20%, and now we have got to know that Ekta Halvasia, the investor, has bought around 3.7 lakh shares in the company at 55.14 rupees a piece. So let's see what happens in this stock. Lastly, on the results front, we have Axita Cotton, CGD Petrochem, and KSH International. All these companies will come up with their quarterly results today. And if you look at the global events, we've already seen some events happening in the US and Venezuela. So let's see if it has any grip on the Indian market today.
There is a lot to track today. Gaurav, thank you for that update. And to tell us what all the stocks that should be on your radar, Ria is here with that very, very long list. Ria, morning.
Well, good morning, Hormuz. A very long list indeed, and starting off with the Q3 updates. First up is Bank of India. The deposits as well as the gross advances in the domestic business have seen growth of roughly 13% and 15% on a year-on-year basis. For PNB, the domestic business has gone up by roughly 3% sequentially and 9% on a year-on-year basis. For Avenue Supermarts as well, healthy growth seen in the standalone revenue coming in at roughly 17,600 crores in this quarter. For Union Bank, the advances have seen an increase of roughly 700 4.5%, while the domestic deposits have gone up by roughly 3.5% compared on a year-on-year basis. For Hindustan Zinc, the mined metal production has come in at roughly 276 kilotons, going up by roughly 4% on a year-on-year basis. For IDBI Bank, the total business has declined by 2% on a sequential basis, but up 12% on a year-on-year basis. For Vedanta Zinc, the aluminum production has seen an increase of roughly 1% compared to Q3 of last year. And for Bajaj Finance, the AUM growth has been in line with the company's guidance given last quarter, that was 22 to 23%. Moving away from the Q3 updates, Adani Enterprises has approved a fundraise of 1,000 crores with a green shoe option of 500 crores. For Coal India, its arm Bharat Coking Coal has filed for an IPO, so this stock could also be in focus on the back of that. Trident's Group CFO Rahul Rungta has resigned with effect from the 2nd of January. For Kiri Industries, this company has received roughly $689 million from Dystar stake sale after a legal battle. And remember, the stock has also been in focus over the last couple of weeks, so watch out for this one in today's trading session as well. And the last stock is Nikkei Limited, backing an order worth roughly 293 crores from the Indian Army for the manufacture and supply of ground equipment for universal rocket launcher systems.
Priya, thank you for that update there. Lastly, Sudarshan joins in with cues from the FNO space. Sudarshan, good morning. It's a record high. What is the FNO data pointing towards?
So, good morning, Hormaz, and it's the first full week of 2026 and Nifty firmly holding the levels above 26,000, and now it has formed the base in the range of 26,000 to 26,100, and the support majorly is coming from Nifty Bank, especially from the PSU bank side. All the PSU banks have been moving higher over the last few days, and if you take a look of the FI's action, mostly their action has been on the long side. In the index futures, they have done buying. Also, they have added long positions of more than 2,500 contracts, reduced short positions of more than 11,000 contracts, and now their long exposure has increased to 11% from the earlier level of 9%. Now, in the options data on the call side, 26,200 has seen shedding, while the maximum addition was seen in 26,500, and on the put side, 26,300 and 26,250, both these strike rates have seen the addition, but at the same time, premium for both these options has moved lower. So I've just taken the support for Nifty, 26,000, that's the 50-day moving average. Resistance, 26,500 would be the first resistance. That's the most active option for Nifty. And as far as Nifty banking is concerned, support would be around 59,700, Friday's intraday low. One stock is in the band, that is SAIL, and two stocks that have been seeing fresh strong, SBI and Angel One.
Sudarshan, thank you for that update there. 90 points higher now is where the implied open currently is. Take a short break, continue our coverage on the US attacks on Venezuela on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and all the weekend developments that took place in Venezuela. Here are some expert views on the implications of this development.
What often happens in the United States before a major military operation, there is at least the modest effort to explain to the American people what exactly is at stake. And if you listen carefully to President Trump and Secretary Rubio and other key figures at the top of the administration, they've been a little bit vague about what exactly is at stake here. Is it illegal drugs? Is it illegal persons coming over the border? Is it oil, as your excellent guests have been speculating about? It hasn't been completely clear. And remember, Martin, the most important element that President Trump ran on when he was vying for his second term is no more endless wars, no more reaching out and engaging in military operations that have nothing to do with making America great again. So I think he's going to have some explaining to do to his very base that is wary about some of these international engagements.
I think a lot of people are basically thinking about, what's going on in Venezuela, right? Especially, given all these political turmoil. But very importantly is that this is something that is not really completely new, right? So of course there's military action, but at the same time, you look at like half a year ago, there's already U.S. fleet around the coast of Venezuela, right? So basically, a lot of those oil prices, even though that will give some oil price volatility going forward, but at the same time, a lot of things we think have priced in the oil price already. So that's number one.
And now this Venezuela conflict also puts companies like ONGC and Reliance Industries in the spotlight. Why so, and what are the implications? Sonal is joining us to explain just that. Sonal, good morning.
Good morning, Hormuz. Well, a lot has been happening. Now, do remember in April 2025, Donald Trump had put sanctions on Venezuelan oil, and that's something that would change now, that would reverse now with American companies, the US companies entering the market. That would mean there could be some pressure on oil prices because more supply would come by. Now, let's talk about company-specific data. For ONGC, they have investments in Venezuela. San Cristobal project, where ONGC Videsh, that holds 40% participating interest in that field. OVL, Indian Oil Corporation, and Oil India also hold via JV 11% stake in Carabobo 1 field. So these are some investments that ONGC has. Now, remember, because of all the sanctions that had come by, the company could not go ahead and execute the exploration that they were having and that particular field, because there was blockage to access to rigs, equipments and services needed to sustain the output. Also, Venezuela failed to pay dividends worth $536 million to ONGC since 2014. Now there's a possibility that this money could come back to ONGC, so that definitely is a big positive for them. In fact, there's a PTI report which suggests that once sanctions are eased, or ONGC Videsh could move rigs and other equipments from India to Venezuela, and this could increase their output that had plummeted to as low as 5,000 to 10,000 barrels per day to now 80,000 to 1 lakh barrels per day. So the output could increase, and that is something which will be positive, along with the dividend that ONGC will now receive. For Reliance Industries, there was a long-standing pact that they had for Venezuelan oil. It was a 15-year-old pact, but of course, the sanctions impacted that. Analysts are suggesting that this could start now. There could be some discount that Reliance Industries could get that on that as well. And that is something which will improve margins for them. So yes, some positive news would be expected because of these updates.
Yes, we'll keep an eye out on both of these names as well. Sonal, thank you for explaining that to us. Now, in a separate development, Donald Trump, replying to a question on India and its purchases of Russian oil, had this to say. Listen in.
If you want to end this conflict, then put pressure on Putin's customers. He sanctioned the two largest oil companies in Russia, which is the biggest pressure anybody's put on Putin since the war started. But we have 85 co-sponsors to give this president...
It's hurting Russia very bad, the sanctions.
Oh, yeah. So this bill would allow...
And India also is bullish.
Yes, sir. So he put a 25% tariff on India for buying Russian oil. I was at the Indian ambassador's house about a month ago, and all he wanted to talk about is how they're buying less Russian oil. Would you tell the president to relieve the tariff? This stuff works. So I'm hoping we'll bring the bill up, and it's from 0 to 500. He picks the number, nobody else does. But if you're buying cheap Russian oil, keeping Putin's war machine going, we're trying to give the president the ability to make that a hard choice by tariffs. I really do believe that what he did with India is the chief reason India is now buying substantially less Russian oil. So I hope we pass this bill soon. And after this...
They wanted to make me happy, basically. He wanted to... Modi's a very good man.
Yes.
He's a good guy. He knew I was not happy, and it was important to make me happy. They do trade. Yeah. And we can raise tariffs on them very quickly, and it would be very bad for them.
We'll take a short break. Cues from the commodities market on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. And as promised, Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. The whole host of developments over the weekend, and the oil prices are seeing a negative reaction to it.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely, because the markets are reading it in various ways. To begin with, Hormuz, it always was the case that, one, Venezuela is not such a big of a producer. It does less than 1 million barrels per day, and we're looking at an excess of 2.5 million barrels per day for the year 2026. The other thing is that the U.S. strike on Venezuela has inflicted no damage on the country's oil production and refining industry. So all we are looking at is perhaps more investments coming into the country, reviving of the oil there. So what we are looking at perhaps in 2 to 3 years is more oil coming in from Venezuela. So no damage, and the fact that 1 million barrels per day of a loss is not too much, given the fact that much of that was going to China, and China perhaps could be buying it from other countries, is what seems to be relieving the markets right now. But what has led to a reaction in the international markets clearly has been for the precious metal prices. We did see gold prices surge above $4,400 an ounce. Silver has gained 4% in the Asian markets right now. Copper is up 2% as well. So the money moving into tangible commodities continues to be quite strong. This also is on the back of the fact that while, of course, Venezuela is a simmering factor right now, but the U.S.-Iran issues could lead to higher prices also. And then the U.S. president saying that he could be looking at Colombia, Mexico, Cuba in terms of some action as well, is what has led to geopolitical premium building up in many of these commodities.
Manisha, thank you for that update there. Oil prices in an oversupplied market too, seeing a negative reaction. HDFC Bank's business updates on your screen. Gross advances up 11.9% from last year for the December quarter. So more updates coming in as we speak. So we'll be reacting to that. Average advances under management also up 9% from last year to 28.6 lakh crore. We'll talk more about this on the other side. Take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast from me and the team. Thank you for watching. Bazaar Morning Call on the other side.